Welcome back to iBio STEMFamily Camp. It's Tuesday and we are going to be exploring plant life cycle. STEMFamily Virtual Camp is made possible through generous donations from Abbott, Astellas, and Horizon. Welcome back to iBio STEMFamily Camp. It is Tuesday and today we are going to be looking at life cycle of a plant. We're going to use two different seeds, corn seeds and Wisconsin fast plant seeds, so that we can see how they work. So, are you ready to get started? Let's go. I know. You're probably thinking, plants are boring. But hear me out. Plants are ancient, plants are amazing, and we really need to know about plants. They are completely self-sufficient and they don't need animals to get their energy and survive. However, we can't live without plants. They have the ability to save our planet from global environmental problems. Not only do they provide us with oxygen to breathe, but they can also filter dangerous chemicals from the air. That's right, they can clean the air. Throughout history, humans have used plants to treat all kinds of illnesses. Today, about 40% of our prescription medicines come from plant extracts or synthesized plant compounds. Plant-based medicines are everywhere, including the shelves of our local drugstores. Plants take up groundwater through their roots and release it through their leaves. They are largely responsible for the movement of water that affects rainfall, and science is finding that this also helps to regulate and stabilize the temperature in our atmosphere. As their roots grow into the soil, they protect and stabilize our soil, keeping it normalized for farming and agriculture and preventing its loss through erosion. Plants are also our most important food source, providing energy for all organisms that cannot make their own food by photosynthesis. They are the base of our food web. Plants are not boring, but they are slow. They move by growing, and this makes it seem as though they're doing nothing. But time-lapse photography shows us that plants are very active. Their slow timeline requires patience to study. We are going to use plants to set up a simple science experiment and learn how to be patient and methodical scientists. So these are our materials for today. What you're going to need is some cotton balls and some corn seeds. You're going to need yarn or ribbon. I have ribbon because I couldn't find any yarn. You should have a small jewelry bag that you're going to be using and water. You'll need your markers. You're also going to need, for the second part, you're going to need 3 9-ounce cups and 3 4-ounce cups. You'll need a ruler. You'll need the 2 peat coins that you got in your kit. You're going to need 3 different lengths of string. You're going to need scissors and 6 toothpicks. You're going to need the fast plant seeds and the fertilizer that came with your kit. You may want to use some construction paper, and you're going to need some plastic bags. So we're going to be planting some fast plant seeds in peat, which is kind of like soil, and we won't be able to see what the seeds are doing at the very beginning of their life cycle. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a germination necklace. In your kit, you should have gotten 2 corn seeds and some cotton balls, and what we're going to do is we're going to give the corn seeds the conditions they need to grow so that we can watch them. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your cotton balls and you're going to soak them in water. Now they're going to fill up really, really fast. So you're going to want to squeeze them out because you don't want them to be soaked. You want them to be moist. So here I've got actually 4 cotton balls because my cotton balls are very small. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use a jewelry bag as the place where they're going to grow. And because the soil is dark and it's sort of warm, but we are basically creating a small incubator for our seeds. So I'm going to take the cotton balls and I'm going to line them up inside of the jewelry bag, as you can see. And then I'm going to take my seeds and I am going to put one seed on one side of the jewelry bag so that it is next to the moist cotton. And I'm going to do the same thing with the second seed, except I'm going to put it on the other side. So you can see, and it's a little tricky. You're going to have to kind of move it around a little bit to get it over there. And so here I now have a seed on one side and a seed on the other side. The instructions are right here. I'm going to ask you to take a moment and pause your video and go ahead and set up your seeds in your bag. When you're done, turn the video back on for the next part. So I have a little bit of air in my bag and I've sealed it nice and tight, but in order for it to be an incubator, I need to give it some body heat. So we're going to turn it into a necklace that we can wear close to our body where it'll keep it heated. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut just a little bit of a hole right here in the top. Now I don't want to cut through here because I want to make sure that I can string either the yarn or the ribbon through that hole. So I'm going to put this through just like that. And you can see it's like a necklace, and I'm going to put a knot at the end. Now you may actually need to get a little bit of help to do this because it can be a little bit tricky, but you can see that I now have a necklace that I can wear. Now I like to get a little crafty with some of these things, especially if I'm going to be wearing it. So what I did is I used the construction paper in my kit and my scissors and my glue, and I made myself a little sleeping bag for my bag. And so I'm going to show you how that slips on, but you can decorate it any way you'd like. But I set this up so that I could just string this through just like that and cover my little seeds up. And then I can wear it around my neck close to my body. So I'm going to put it inside my shirt, and this is where I'm going to wear it all day so that it keeps the seeds nice and warm. And we will be keeping track of the growth of those seeds. What makes an inquiry scientific is the data that we take. In your data journal, you will see a chart for corn kernel 1 and corn kernel 2. As an example, day 0 has been done for you. We don't have any root or shoot to measure, so we're going to record it as 0 millimeters. Day 0 also shows some sample observations, so you know the types of things that you should be recording. You need to pick a time each day that you will check your seeds. Once you see growth of root or the shoot, you're going to use your ruler to measure the length. Young roots and shoots are very fragile, so be careful when you measure because broken roots and shoots will no longer grow. Got a little windy, so now we've come inside. We're going to set up our growth chambers in here. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to find your peat pellets, and we're going to hydrate these. So you should have a bowl, or I have a plastic container of water, and you're simply going to drop the peat pellets into the water. And I'm going to let you do that so that you can discover what happens. The other thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get our water reservoirs set up. Now these water reservoirs are what is going to make our container self-watering. So it's always going to contain some water. We want every single one of our growth chambers to have exactly the same amount of water. So we're going to measure out. And we're going to do that by taking a ruler and putting it to the inside of the cup and a marker or something that will mark on the plastic. And we're going to mark 3 centimeters from the bottom. So I can see 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to just make a mark there. I'm going to do exactly the same thing with all 3 of my cups. And then once I have them marked, I am going to put some water in up to the line, and I am going to put my 3 cups off to the side. Pause your video now and set up your peat pellets and your water reservoirs. Okay, Okay, so you can see in the container that our peat has filled up with water and we've saturated our strings. So now what we need to do is set up our growth cups. Our growth cups are going to be the small 4-ounce cups, and you're going to want to label each one of them with our variable. Our variable is fertilizer. So I have 1 cup for no fertilizer, 1 for 3 fertilizer, and 1 for 6 fertilizer. Now to make this self-watering, we are going to need to put a hole in the bottom of the cup. So there is a nail in your Friday bag, or if you're just looking for yourself, you can use anything that's slightly sharp to puncture a hole. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna carefully do this. I don't wanna split the cup. So I'm going to carefully puncture a hole in the bottom of the cup, just like this, by kind of twisting and moving it around. And we want it to be a little bit larger than the nail, so you can see I'm just kind of moving it around to make the hole a little bit bigger. And in fact, now that I have the hole in there, I am going to use the pointed end of my scissors to make that hole just a little bit larger. Because what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this saturated string that we had in there, and we're gonna pull that through the hole in the cup. And we want it to be snug because we don't want it to fall out. So when you get done, it's gonna look like this. And you're gonna do the same thing in each of your 3 cups. Once you have that, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna work with the peat. So you're gonna take the peat out of the water, and I'm gonna use the scissors to open up the casing. So here is the actual peat. And in each of my 3 cups, now remember, you're gonna actually have strings in each of these cups. I'm gonna take the first peat pellet and I'm going to spread the peat out between the 3 cups. So here it is. Okay, and you're gonna be covering the string with the peat. Okay, and I'm distributing it in each one. Okay, and I'm gonna leave one of the peat pellets because we're gonna use that after we've planted our seeds. So this one needs a little bit more peat in it. So I'm gonna empty that out. Okay, and you can see that there's a layer of peat in each one of the cups. Now, at this point, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take each of the cups, and these 2 don't have their wicks in them, but this one does, and we're gonna place it in the cup. And the string that's down there is gonna pull water up into the cup so that the seeds constantly have the water they need.
So pause the video now, gather your materials, and go ahead and set up your growth cups. Remember that unlike the video, you're going to need to put your wick in all 3 cups. Check the 3 growth cups that you just set up and make sure that they resemble the picture that you see here. Remember that plants are slow. For our science experiment, we will be using fast plants to make it a little easier for us to see. The University of Wisconsin has developed a form of quick-growing Brassica rapa plants that we will be using in our experiment. Brassica rapa is the plant species that brings broccoli, kale, and cauliflower to our dinner tables. And we will be altering one variable in its growth, the fertilizer pellets that we feed our plants. This is our independent variable, the only thing that we will change. Everything else will be exactly the same. We will know if the fertilizer affects the plants when we measure and compare our 2 dependent variables, the height of our plants and the number of seeds that we harvest.
So now all 3 growth cups are completely set up. We have our reservoir, which is full of the right amount of water in each one. You can see that they all match. You can see that we have wicks in all 3. We have the same amount of peat in all 3, and the growth cup is sitting in the reservoir. So we are now ready to put our fertilizer in. Now our fertilizer is our independent variable, and we are going to be using it because the peat doesn't actually have any nutrients in it. So this is what the fertilizer looks like. And you've got two different things. You've got the seeds and the fertilizer. So if you take a look, these are the 12 fertilizer pellets, and here are the seeds. You can see the seeds are much, much smaller. So these are our fertilizer pellets, and we are going to add them to our cup. Now this cup is not going to get any fertilizer, so we're just going to let it be. But this cup right here is going to get 3 fertilizer pellets. Now I'm going to put them in there so that they are kind of distributed in the cup. And then this one right here is going to get 6 fertilizer pellets. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you do have extra fertilizer pellets because they tend to kind of roll around a little bit and we tend to lose them. So you have a couple of extra just in case you need them. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take the peat pellet that we left alone, and we're going to pull this apart, and we're going to take the peat pellet, and we are now going to distribute the peat in each of our remaining 3 cups. So here we go. We're going to cover it up, and you can see that that's filling up the cup. And I'm doing my best to try and make sure that I have the same amount of peat in each of the 3 cups here. Okay, so now all of the peat is distributed and our cups are identical to one another so that we can do this scientifically.
Pause the video now and go ahead and add the fertilizer and the remaining peat to your growth cups.
Okay, so our growth chambers are set up. Now it's time to plant our seeds. Now our seeds are super tiny, so you're gonna have to be very careful with them because you will not have any extra. You're gonna have 6 seeds. You're also going to need 6 toothpicks that you're gonna use to identify each of your seeds. So to make it possible to identify them, you are going to color each one of them with a different color marker so that you can identify which one is which. So right now I'm just going ahead and I'm marking the top of each of my toothpicks so I will be able to identify them later. So that is my pink one, and I have a brown one and a red one. So we've got 6 toothpicks that we're going to be using. Now, in order to plant these, we're going to plant 2 seeds in each chamber. So we're going to start with the one for no fertilizer. So I'm going to take one of the toothpicks and I'm going to use it as a gardening tool. And I'm just going to use the toothpick to create a small hole in the peat. And I'm going to drop the seed into that hole, and it didn't want to go in there, so I'm going to shove it in with the toothpick. And then I'm going to use the toothpick to cover it up, and I'm going to put the toothpick in place to show where I just planted the seed. I'm going to do the same thing with the second seed. I'm just going to create a small hole. I'm going to drop the seed in, make sure that it's nice and deep, and then I'm going to cover it up and put the toothpick in place. You're going to do the same thing with all of your plants. So here is my next seed. And again, they're very tiny, so be careful. And you want the seed to be so kind of in the middle of the peat. You don't want it to be all the way down at the bottom of the plastic, but you don't want to be able to see it either. And so here's this container. And then my last one, dig a little hole, drop the seed in and mark it. And my last one. Now you'll notice that I'm doing them kind of far apart from one another because I don't want them to be competing. And I've done exactly the same thing in each of my chambers so that again, I'm controlling my variables. Now, this is very open and in order to water our plants, we need to be able to kind of open it up and close it back up again. And so we're going to create a small greenhouse using a baggie. So for each of my plants, I will be putting a baggie over the top so that it creates just a small area where the water won't evaporate quite so quickly. And if I need to water it, I'm gonna take the bag off. I'm gonna be using a medicine cup, which you have in your kits, or you can use you need about 2 tablespoons of water, but you're gonna fill, or actually 1 tablespoon of water. Sorry about that, 1 tablespoon of water. And each day, and I'm just gonna demonstrate this here, but it doesn't need to be done the first day because we saturated our peat. We're just going to pour 1 tablespoon of water in the cup. Now, there's gonna be a little bit of extra water, and because there's a hole at the bottom of the cup, it's gonna drain into the reservoir. If while it's growing, you notice that the amount of water in the reservoir has gotten low, then all you'll do is lift the growth cup and add whatever water you need in the cup. Okay, so each one of them will have its own baggie. And then what we're gonna do is you need to find a good sunny place in your house where you can let your cups sit and you will be watching their growth.
In a moment, you should pause the video so that you can plant the seeds. But because this is a family experiment, you might consider having each chamber adopted by a different member of the family. They can set up the seeds, but they can also be in charge of the watering and measuring for that chamber. Go ahead and pause your video now and plant your seeds. Plants are slow, and so we will be taking care of them every 2 days. Every 2 days, you should be watering your plant, making sure the water reservoir has water in it, and measuring the height with your ruler. You should have a data chart for each of your chambers, and because we colored the toothpicks, you'll be able to keep track of which plant is which. Take your data every 2 days, even if you see no growth, and record zeros for every day. You will be caring for your plants beyond the 5 days of camp. This is an experiment that you and your family can complete throughout the summer. Your plant is going to grow, and when it becomes too tall, you will have to remove the baggie. But at some point, a healthy plant is going to make a flower, and when your plant makes a flower, your flower will need to be pollinated in order to make seeds. So you will need to have a cotton swab to use. You will very gently and in a circle rub the tip of the cotton swab in the center of the flower. This will pick up any pollen, and you should see the pollen on the cotton swab. Then using the same swab, you're going to rub the pollen on a different flower, and you will continue until you've pollinated any open flowers. Then put the cotton swab in a plastic bag, and anytime you see new flowers, pollinate again with the same swab. In fact, you should use the same swab to pollinate flowers on all of your plants. Eventually, the pollinated flowers are going to make seeds. The seeds will be enclosed in pods that you will see thicken and elongate. The number of seeds that are produced by the plant will tell us how successful the plant has been. On the 30th day of the life cycle, you are going to allow your plants to dry out. That means you're going to empty your reservoir and you're going to stop watering. And don't worry, this is part of the natural life cycle of the plant. When the pods are brown and crispy, they are actually ready to harvest. So you're going to remove the pods and open them up and count any seeds that you have. Now the cool thing about this is those seeds are all going to be viable. That means that if you wanted to, you could go ahead and plant them again and try a brand new experiment with your new seeds. Watching plants grow and develop is a really awesome experience. And although it's going to take several weeks until you actually get to see the product of all of your efforts, I hope it gives you the confidence to try it again. Maybe grow some flowers or some food that you might be able to eat with your family. There's nothing more awesome than putting things on your plate that you've grown yourselves. When you find your final results, make sure that you post them to the Facebook page, even though camp will be over. We want to see what your plants looked like when they were mature, how many flowers and seeds that you have, and which of your plants did the best. Thanks for joining us for day 2 of iBio STEM Family Camp. We'll see you tomorrow, campers.